Chad Kirby, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
How are you?
doing good.
Good.
Doing good. Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to come do this with me, record this with me. So
Absolutely.
it's these are fun to do. I like doing podcasts. One, it's easy. You just have a conversation. But then two, we're able to get so many different other videos and stuff like that. So out of it. So
Well, and I think the power of the podcast is that it's conversational. And so people share content, knowledge, tips that may not come out in a more scripted scenario.
right.
But when you're just, talking through certain strategies, certain important points that just you get gold all along the way.
Yeah, I think it's more authentic too.
Sure.
Just having a conversation. So
For sure.
So you were telling me a little bit about what you're doing as far as you're working with attorneys.
I am. I spend a lot of time with attorneys. Attorneys are a lot like mini entrepreneurs. Michael Gerber says that most entrepreneurs are technicians having an entrepreneurial seizure, right? And so no attorney, or very few at least, start their career thinking, I want to own a business. I want to run a business.
Right.
So they find themselves in the middle of practicing law and they're accidental entrepreneurs, which a lot of people are.
Sure.
They think that, I want to go do this. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in this situation where no one teaches in, law school how to run a business. No one teaches in law school how to do sales. No one teaches. And that's the case regardless of what kind of entrepreneur you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Someone goes to become an HVAC specialist, then they're fixing air conditioning units. Well, then all of a sudden they're running their own business and they're like, wait a second, no one told me about this.
And going from, I can relate to that, because going from working a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd look at, I remember talking to business owners and stuff and thinking, well, they're making $500,000 a year. But that's not what they're making.
Right. Right.
That's their revenue. That's nowhere near what they're making, Yeah, I always thinking as well, like, why don't they think of this stuff? Well, turns out people are busy.
Well,
turns out running a business is pretty hard.
Yeah, but I think that's what makes Why Not Results so special, because you have been sitting front and center to so many businesses. I mean, there are people that would have to live lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to work with as many businesses and organizations as you have.
That's true.
And so that's really cool. And so you've been able to sit and watch it, and then you've been doing it. And so you take the combination of both those, and it's phenomenal.
It is. It's also funny to me. I was talking to my brother, who does implementation and stuff for marketing automation systems, and he said, I don't remember what he was recommending, but he goes, yeah, well, why aren't you doing that? And I said, why am I not doing that? I was recommending this. It was a video on the thank you page, right, to introduce your brand. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yeah, why aren't you doing that? You can obviously record video, There's no excuse. And I said, I just hadn't thought about it. But that's something I used to recommend to almost every client. And it was like their mind would explode. Oh, it's such a great great tip. But then I get my own business and I wasn't doing it. So
That's a fact. That's a challenge. I remember years ago when you and I were both working in a different organization that taught people the importance of follow-up,
mm-hmm.
right? And so I was speaking from stage and I was talking about how important it is to follow up, and then we even had them fill out a paper where we'd give them an ebook back in the day, this ebook on the importance of fixing follow-up failure,
mm-hmm.
right? And I remember sitting in the office and someone came in and they had a stack of papers, and I was like, what's that? And they said, that's from that big event we were just at, and people opted in on this paper to receive the ebook on fixing follow-up failure. And I was like, oh no. So we didn't follow up with these people, and they're like, no, what do you do? So here we have 150 people or 200 people that said, yes, I want this ebook on follow-up failure. Yeah. And we never followed up with them to give them the ebook.
Or definitely didn't follow up after that if any of them did get the ebook.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. It's definitely different running a business compared to, working at one or talking about running one.
For sure.
But it's been fun though. So you were saying you work with these attorneys, and what's sort of your process as far as what do you take me through kind of what it looks like.
Okay, what we find that a lot of law firms and entrepreneurs in general, they don't have any systems or processes to deliver on the outcome they're looking for. So someone comes in, a client comes in, or a potential new client, and they're just making it up as they go, all along the way. And so when it comes to intake or sales, they don't have any process in that. They don't have any process in the whole experience. And the latest survey I've read is 85% of people are less trusting today than they were 5 years ago.
I believe that.
Right. So the trust just keeps wavering with people. Well, how do you combat that? Well, you have to be consistent. People trust consistency.
Absolutely.
And so people may not notice when you are consistent, but they will notice the moment you are not. And so what we do is we'll go into law firms and teach them how to create a consistent client experience. And so that trust is built. And so building that trust is key. And so as you think about, and those listening think about their business and what they're doing, how are you creating consistency throughout the experience? And I love this quote from David Horsaker. He says, in every interaction, we increase or decrease trust. In every interaction.
It's true. That's a true statement.
And so you there, I mean, think for a moment about a brand that you really trusted for maybe a lot of years, and then all of a sudden they have all these interactions where you're decreasing trust.
Right.
And all of a sudden that trust is gone. And so when we go into law firms and we'll sit down and go, okay, remember, in every interaction, people are either increasing or decreasing trust with you. And so what are you doing? What are you doing to make sure that you build that trust?
And in an industry that is probably, has a reputation of not always being incredibly trustworthy too.
For
right?
sure.
I mean, that is the other part of it.
And that's what's amazing, because there's so many good attorneys out there. They're just really good people, but there is that unfortunate stereotype of them, just being self-serving.
Yeah.
And it goes back to this, and this is another thing we teach is, and you know this, Jimmy, the confused mind does nothing, right?
Right.
And no one's better at confusing somebody than an attorney. and it's because they just simply give too much information.
Right.
And so they give so much information that the mind gets confused, and they disengage, and then they walk out of there and they're frustrated.
That makes sense, though. I mean, you think, I think you're probably dead on with that, because you think about back when we were selling and stuff, right? And one of the biggest things that would screw someone up was just that information dump, right? Not taking time to listen, right? I always said that the mute button was my best friend, because it made me shut up.
For sure. Totally. And what was crazy for us back in the day, Jimmy, when we were working at that software company, that some of the best salespeople we had were those who were new.
Yeah, that's right.
And then once they learned more, they became worse.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's because they weren't listening anymore. When you started, they didn't know what to say, so they spent a lot of time listening.
Right.
But then the more they learn, they're like, oh, I got this. And so they start talking more. And one of the things that we do, we teach a lot of, and you know this, but everyone's favorite subject is themselves. It is. Yeah. And it's like, and when you listen to somebody and have them share their concern, their frustration, their worry, then you listen and they're like, wait a second, that person's favorite subject's my favorite subject, me, So.
Yeah, no, that's true. And people love to talk about their businesses too. Which is what we were talking to them about directly. So, that's that is an interesting observation about attorneys. I hadn't thought about it in that respect. They're just information overloading people a lot of
all the time. And the reason why is I call this the credential trap. Okay, and every business owner does it, and attorneys do it a lot. And that is, they feel like they need to credentialize themselves. They need to feel like, oh, I need to explain why I'm qualified to do this. And it's like, no. You need to explain. You simply need to explain their pain better,
right,
than they can.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
absolutely.
And so if you can explain their pain better than them, then they're like, oh, they know exactly what I'm experiencing right now. And the best way to do that is make sure they feel like you're listening.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
And so, in fact, if I can just share a quick story,
absolutely.
I had a friend who we were talking through this principle, and his name was TK. And I said, and TK owned a restoration company, one of the largest here in Arizona. And he was trying really hard to get on with a certain insurance provider.
Okay.
And he could not get on with them. And restoration companies work with insurance companies. And so He was trying, and then he got notified that the vice president, one of the vice presidents of this insurance company, had a need for restoration up on Camelback Mountain.
Awesome.
And so he got called upon to go up there. And so he's like, oh my goodness, this is my big opportunity. So we start driving up to this guy's house, and he's like, okay, what am I going to say? I've been in this business this long. And he started to credentialize himself. Now, people listening right now are like, okay, that's exactly what I do. You know,
Yeah, makes sense.
This is why I'm qualified to do this. He goes up and he goes, wait a second. That's the credential trap that Chad taught me. Everyone's favorite subjects themselves. So he goes and he knocks at the door, and the guy opens the door and he goes, oh my goodness, your home is beautiful. And the guy goes, oh, thank you. Would you like to see it? And he goes, I would love to. Jimmy, they spent an hour walking around the house, and then he left. And never at one point did they talk about the restoration company. Never at one point did they talk about the need of what had to be done. Mm-hmm. And he got a phone call. They got the job.
Of course he did. Yeah, that makes sense.
But he never explained that he had the credentials. He never explained anything. But the guy left, and he goes, this is amazing. TK's favorite subject's my favorite subject, me. Right? Because he listened to him and asked questions of him the entire time.
Right.
And so often, attorneys, when I'm working with attorneys, they'll want to credentialize themselves. They'll want to say, this is why I'm qualified. This is why I'm qualified. And regardless of your industry, people do the same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And people just want to know that their favorite subject's your favorite subject.
That's great advice.
It's true.
So you help them with that, and are you actually consulting them? Like, I mean, are you in the office? How does it look?
So we sit down, we have the systems in place. We teach them the processes, put the systems in place, and then train them along the way.
Makes sense.
To help them, to really help them scale their firm. Because the reality is too many entrepreneurs, too many lawyers, too many attorneys, law firms, they're just on this treadmill, and they keep saying to themselves, in fact, when I get up and speak at a conference full of attorneys, I'll say, how many of you have ever said, 6 months from now, I'm not going to be where I am now, right? And everyone raises their hand, and I say,
yeah.
And then 6 months goes by and you go, no, I meant 6 months from now, you know, and we keep putting it off, and we keep saying, no, I'm going to be in a different situation. Mm-hmm. But really stopping and saying, no, I'm not going to be and continue to be in the situation I'm in right now. When I was speaking at an event with Michael Gerber, he wrote the book, The E-Myth, and he asked the question, he said, how many of you want to grow this year? And everyone, all the entrepreneurs there raised their hand. And then he stopped and he goes, how many of you are determined to grow this year? And then hands literally went down. And I sat and I was watching it, and I thought, you know, we all want to grow.
Yeah, sounds great.
But are we really determined to grow?
Right.
Meaning, I am going to do this, you know? And so it's having that determination. So when we work at the law firm, we work with those who are determined to grow, that say, no, I'm not going to stay where I am right now. I'm going to scale. I'm going to put myself in a different situation.
It's one thing I always respect about like Gary Vee when he spoke at conferences and stuff too, when he'd flat out say like, you know, you say you want to grow your business, but you're not willing to post to social media. You're not willing to, you know, make a video every day. You're not willing to, you know, and it's true, right? It's true with so many businesses.
So many.
Yeah, I talk to people regularly where we're talking about, you know, content creation and posting for them and stuff like that. And all that we say is just, you know, we need you to do this, right? We need you to record one long form or take some pictures around your place, around your store, or whatever. And I'm not going to do that. Okay, well, what are you paying me for then? I mean, what are we? I can't do anything unless you give me something to work with.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's so important people work with you, because you push them to put themselves out there. You say, okay, I'm going to put yourself out there a little bit. And people are so hesitant to do that. We are so fearful of what others are going to think. We're afraid of failure. There's so many things that fear causes us to stop and not do
Absolutely.
What we know we should do.
Absolutely. No, yeah, and that's a valid point. People are the insecurity that's there with so many business owners, and I always tell them, look, for a long time, no one's going to see anything you post anyway. You know, it's going to take some time to build up to where anyone's going to see it anyways. So, you know, make your mistakes now. Let's get it out there and let's see what it does. You know.
Well, and people also appreciate vulnerability.
Right.
You know, and the more vulnerable you are, the more you connect with them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I can remember when we first started, when me and Mario first partnered, some of my content I know didn't look, incredible, right? But there was nothing but positivity that came to me from it, and obviously it's dramatically improved, and I wouldn't want to post that now, but at the time I was proud of it. It was good enough, it was good, and it only has to be good, so good for social media specifically too. But even for anything, for sales videos, for what, get something.
Absolutely.
Version 1 is better than version none, right?
Absolutely. But ask yourself this question. I mean, what would you do if you had no fear?
Yeah.
What would you do? So think about your business and what you want to do and how you want to grow the business. What if you had no fear? What would you do? And people would be like, "Well, I do this, I do this, I do this." Then do it. Don't let that fear hold you back.
Right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right there. So you've worked with, when we worked together, and probably since for you, you've worked with some pretty high profile influencers and stuff like that. It was always interesting for me to kind of get to know their business, when we were working with digital marketer and stuff like that, to kind of see a little bit behind the scenes. What was was there anything that was kind of the biggest surprise when you went in and actually met with a business, or whether it was Entree Leadership or digital marketer or anything like that?
I think the biggest surprise for me, and it shouldn't come as a surprise given what we've been talking about, is how similar all entrepreneurs are, how similar all business leaders are. But those who are super successful are those who are willing to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
They're willing to put themselves out there. They're willing to make that podcast. They're willing to put that social media push. And, they'll do that. That's what those great influencers do. Because if you sit down, and again, I've been fortunate to meet some of the best of the best. And they're just people like anyone else.
Absolutely.
But they're willing to put themselves out there. They're willing to say, you know what, I'm going to try this. And they have some epic failures.
Yeah.
But they keep at it, and they keep resilient, and they're resilient, and it's amazing.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. Like I said, that was one shocker with when we started working with digital marketer a little more, right? Because it was a shock both thinking about our business, but then also, kind of meeting a lot of people on the back end there, which is they like you said, they have all the same challenges, and you can tell, right?
Right.
That every other business had, that the business we were with had. And yeah, it was interesting. So.
Well, and I'd say in my experience in speaking with all these influencers, I mean, you mentioned digital marketer Ryan Dice and Richard Lindner and their team. I mean, they're the real deal.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree. Agreed.
They're very authentic individuals. They're phenomenal, and they're committed to watching businesses succeed. And so as you look at different influencers, I know sometimes it's hard to really see who is authentic and who's real. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you and I have been able to spend,
see
time,
behind the curtain at times.
See behind the curtain at times. And so like whenever Ryan Dice does something, I'm listening just because I know how real and authentic and a good person he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a handful of the ones that used to be affiliates and clients with the company that we worked for before. There was some that you could just tell they were real. They were the real deal, right? Like, I mean, yeah, it's every time I've had an interaction with Gary V at all, right? I think he is who he comes across as in all his videos and in his speeches and everything like that. Digital marketer is another great example. We were hanging out with Ryan and those guys at Entree Leadership. I don't know if you were there that year, actually, but when it was in San Antonio.
Yeah, maybe, but
I know Ray was there. But either way, so hanging out with the guys from Digital Marketer, and they are exactly how they are on video.
They are.
That's them.
100%. And in finding people that are like-minded as you. And we've all heard this before, but you are the sum total of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right?
Yeah.
And so you choose the people that you want to associate with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same with the people that you're getting content from.
Right.
So be very selective in who you're getting the content from. I mean, obviously, I think you're a phenomenal source.
I appreciate that.
I mean, well, and you're speaking of authentic, and I love what you represent. I love what you do, and you are very authentic and very committed to helping other businesses succeed. That's what you do.
Appreciate that.
And so the watching the right people is also critically important.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
And so, and then just go out there and put yourself out there.
Right.
You know, when we worked at that previous company, you and I together, and we went to that Entree Leadership event, and so I was asked to speak, and the speaker lineup was Dave Ramsey, Chad Kirby, George W. Bush, right? And so it's like, okay, who's this guy in between Dave Ramsey and George W. Bush? But the interesting thing is, because George W. Bush was there, there was literally a barricade between the audience and the stage. Mm-hmm. Which is fine for George W. Bush, who has everyone's attention. But Chad Kirby, I'm literally like looking through bars, right?
So how did you overcome that?
Well, I just recognized it. So I got up and I started my presentation, and then I stopped and I said, it feels like there's a barrier between me and you right now. And everyone died laughing, right? Because you had just acknowledged it. And so that vulnerability, people all of a sudden wanted me to be successful, right? Because I wasn't up trying to just pretend like, okay, because every 6 feet behind me, there was a Secret Service agent. You know what I mean? It was the most uncomfortable speaking assignment I've ever had. And so you have all these Secret Service agents behind me, and then you have this cage in front of me, you know, and all of this that's going on. But I just stopped and acknowledged it. And so when you're up speaking, and I don't want to certainly go down this path too much, but when you're up speaking, if you recognize the vulnerable situation you're in, people will love you. People want you to be successful.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point.
And so when I got up and just acknowledged that there's a barricade, people laughed and they leaned in and wanted me to be successful.
Well, I think it humanizes you, you know?
For sure.
And yeah, I try to liken a lot of public speaking stuff to video presence, right? And being there, because I think there's aspects of one that are easier and aspects of the other that are easier, depending on, you know, what it is, as far as speaking in front of an audience or being on video, right? And the audience, you obviously are able to feed off the crowd, but at the same time, you're in front of a crowd. There's a certain level of intimidation there.
For sure.
You know, video, you can hit stop for a second and catch your breath, and you know, when you're in front of an audience, you're there. You know,
right.
You're doing it.
Right.
But you know, then on video, you don't have anyone feeding you anything. You gotta be above and beyond, and do the extra stuff to get good at it. And whether it's on video or on a webinar or whatever, you know, I feel like they're all similar, but they all have their own specific disciplines as well.
Totally. Totally. But the video increases your connection with people, and people are looking for connection, right? People, I had a good friend, Chad Boyd, say that don't look to make a sell, look to make a connection. And so, and people buy from people they connect with. Yeah. And when you're using video and you're using podcasts, you're giving more opportunities to create that connection. Right.
It's just it's just a matter. It's time's up to bat. Right. And the more that you're out there, the more people are going to engage with you. I mean, just the bottom line. And it allows people to see you too. You know, we spoke at I don't know if we had started the podcast yet or not, but about how podcasts are such a great way for people to kind of see the human side of you as well, right? Because when I make a polished video, right, where I'm looking at the camera and I know my lines and I know what I'm going to say, and it turns out great, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean that that's going to be the most authentic video you've ever,
right.
And so it's just, now there's a place for that video, right, in the process. But I think that this allows people to understand you a little bit more too.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. On a lot of my social media videos that I record, I'm recording them a sentence at a time, and then piecing it all together and stuff. And the first time I did a podcast with a guy who actually approached me based on one of my videos, hey, do you want to do a podcast with me? Sure. And he said he was shocked at how slow I talk in a conversation, because on my videos, I'm,
That's funny.
And I said, yeah, I don't normally talk like that.
Right. But there is something about people seeing you, connecting with you, listening to your content. It's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, it's a good way to introduce yourself and let people see the human side, right?
Right.
You don't buy from a logo or a brand. You buy from people.
You know, that's interesting you say that, because I was talking to one firm, and our sales rep had been doing some reach out to different firms, and this individual, I got on the call and I said, so tell me, what made you want to talk with our sales rep? And the person said, because they seemed human. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, so
That's awesome.
So the barrier of entry now is if you can show that you're a human being. Right? That's why. They said, well, you seemed human. I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, I'm inundated all the time with stuff that I know is not real. Like, I know it's AI. I know it's,
right.
there are bots out there. And so, but your individual seemed human to me. And so I thought, well, I'll engage with them, because people want to engage with other human beings. That's the reality. And I know everyone's fearful of AI and what's going to happen there. At the end of the day, people want human to human interaction.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
They're craving that human to human connection.
100% agree. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned AI too. Before this, earlier today, I had to record. We're getting an AI avatar created of me because we're a partner with this software company and there's nowhere in Arizona that records the footage, so we have to record one to show that we can do it. And it was the most uncomfortable video I've probably ever shot, because there's a script that you have to read through, and you know how they always look kind of funny and they kind of close their mouth weird and they shake their head kind of weird. It was prompting me to do those weird things. And it was just there was nothing natural about it, but do it because, like I said, it's a partnership opportunity to bring people in the studio. But yeah, it was by far the most uncomfortable I've been on camera in a long time.
Oh, I can only imagine. But it is. I mean, AI is great, and it's not going anywhere. It's going to be here. There's no question. But the opportunity for us is, how is AI going to complement what we're doing, not compete what we're doing?
Exactly.
I work with attorneys, and attorneys get fearful, like, oh my goodness, one day is a robot going to represent, that individual in the courtroom.
Right.
And given the fact that most of Congress in the United States is attorneys, I think you're okay, right? So, but they're, and the Bar Association will protect them. But that doesn't mean you can't use AI to help complement what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, and that goes back to that fearful mentality. If you have an abundance mentality, then you're going, okay, let's see how this is going to help me.
Yeah.
Rather than have that scarcity mentality of, what's going to go on?
What's going to happen here?
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No. Yeah. I completely agree. And I always tell people, we use AI for a lot of stuff, for different kind of social media posts and things like that. We have a software that my team for our clients will load up content, and then it'll post it out to multiple places and stuff. And in order to get the initial post, there's an AI tool built into it that'll generate some ideas. And people say, okay, well, I'll just go with that. And I say, what? You could, or you could just look at this as, hey, this is to get the wheels turning,
right?
But make it yours.
For sure.
Right.
Know? And that's the key.
Yeah.
People want to hear it in your voice. They want to know that's you. Because
your company and your brand and you should have a voice, a specific, a way of talking about things, a way of doing things. And like I said, you just use that AI as an idea and then go from there. I'm all about using it to make me more efficient.
Right.
But it doesn't remove the fact that you still got to be a human, and it needs to sound like you. Otherwise, you're always going to sound like an AI.
Right. Exactly. And what's interesting is I was speaking at a conference of attorneys a couple of weeks ago, and there were a bunch of attorneys there with day planners that were actually written, paper day planners. And I thought, it's interesting because 20 years ago, we thought those were dead. We thought no one would ever use a planner like that again. But now there's a lot of influencers that push their planner, and there's paper planners out there because people do like writing on paper and using a book. My wife, she likes a book. You know, and there's a lot of people, I love reading off my iPad, you know,
Right.
but she likes a book in there. So there are certain things that, you know, it may change. There's no question it'll change, but there's a lot of stuff that will stay the same too.
Yeah, my partner Mario is always using something called a Rocketbook. Have you ever seen that? So you may do whatever, and then it's got these little icons at the bottom of the page, and there's an app, and you snap a picture of it with the app, and then it can send it to different places. So
Wow.
like your Google Drive, or it can email it to you, or it can, it does all these cool things, but that way he can still
Use that paper.
Yeah, use that paper and write it down as opposed to typing it out. But yeah, I'm like you. I prefer to be digital.
I do too, but it's just understanding that, look, don't be fearful. Just sit and go, okay, how am I going to pivot to where I'm, make the most opportunity and have the most success?
Absolutely. Yeah. And things work differently with different people too.
They do.
So yeah,
They do. But the underlying principle is that human connection is not going away, nor
Definitely
is it
not.
ever going away.
Definitely not.
That things will change. Like you go into McDonald's and sometimes there's, no cashier. Or I'm not sure why you're going to McDonald's to begin with, but things will change. But also it gives you opportunity to have success in a different area.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I know in my business, and I'm interested with yours, there's been so many things along the way where we thought we wanted to offer X, right? We thought we wanted to just be a video studio. We thought, and then decided, no, that's trading time for money. That's
Right.
That's not very scalable. And so we've gone down several different paths, right? And finally, but it's interesting in business how often those types of things change, right?
Right.
As far as what you want to do. Is that something that you see with a lot of your clients as far as the evolution over time of what their offering is, what their specialties are, what they're, what they're doing, and how those shifts are made?
Right. You have to, the bottom line is people are looking for the products that are most simple, right? The best products don't win. The easiest to use products win, right?
Yeah.
And so with law firms, they have to make that adjustment. They have to get, it's kind of, I call it the Ring doorbell principle. Had Ring doorbell put a button on the side of the door that clicked on a video camera or something, it wouldn't have been successful. But people were already pushing the doorbell, so the camera was already there. So it was already part of the path that people were taking. And so when I work with law firms, I'm like, okay, what's the path they're already walking, and how can you make it easier for them?
Absolutely.
Because they're already on that path.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do to make it simple for them to work with you? And so whenever I'm working with a law firm, I always tell them to base it on three things. Okay, first, you're going to book the appointment. Second, we're going to do this. And then third, this is going to happen, right? Because that's all people are looking for.
Yeah.
Make it very simple for them.
That's absolutely true.
So as different products evolve, as AI increases, as all these different changes to our current landscape happen, just make sure that you're trying to increase simplicity in the process.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And on that, when you talk about they're already down the path, that's I think what goes hand in hand with that is making sure that your messaging and your marketing and everything is very is not selfish, but it's you're giving people good information constantly, right? You're educating, you're adding value no matter what. And people are then the people who are on that path are then attracted to your business as opposed to, always trying to push your message on someone, right? The people who want to watch will watch. The people who want to engage are going to engage. And the others, that's fine. We don't need to worry about them,
Yeah, we call that creating an imbalance in the universe. And so what it is like is what you do is you keep giving, because people want to keep their universe balanced. Mm-hmm. Okay, they do. And the more content you give, the more value you give, you create this imbalance. And so then what happens is people want to create balance, and so they want to buy your product. They want to do something with you to create that balance because you've given them so much value. Mm-hmm. And so the more value you give, the more you create that imbalance.
Yeah, you're 100% right there on that. And I always, another thing, it's funny when I talk to clients, the two things that I get a lot when I've just started talking to them is, one, they want all their messaging to be very pushy, very, by now. I said, no one, do you look at stuff like that? Do you sit on the commercial only channel and watch it? No, you don't. You have to watch commercials because it's in between the show.
Right.
Right. And so, you want to add value, you can be entertaining, educational, inspirational, whatever. Right.
Right.
You can hit on multiple things, even better.
Or you could just upgrade your streaming package, Jimmy, and you don't have to watch commercials, right? So get the non-ad commercial package. But that you're exactly right.
Yeah, I think only doing sporting events is anything that I watch commercials on anymore.
All right.
Or on social media, I guess.
Or just on YouTube. You can skip the commercial, but that's exactly right.
And then the other thing is I talk to a lot of businesses, and it's funny, they'll come through my Instagram or my TikTok or LinkedIn or whatever and book an appointment. And then they say, yeah, I mean, do you really think that this works though? We're on the phone right now.
Yeah.
It worked already.
Yeah,
you see what happened?
That's exactly right. Yeah. We're having the conversation. And that's a great point. So Jimmy, what you're doing is and why not so powerful is you're creating opportunity for conversations. And this is what everyone listening needs to remember is sales happen in the conversation. That's it. Sales happen in the conversation. So what are you doing to create those conversations? And so that's why you're doing podcasts. That's why you're putting stuff on TikTok. That's why you're putting videos out there so that people go, oh, I want to have a conversation with them. And then that's when the sale occurs. The sale's not going to occur by Jimmy yelling at the screen, telling them that they need to buy right now, right?
Right.
That's, unless you've got some incredible mop or some knife, it's just not going to happen, right? So you're saying you're giving them content that's going to lead to conversation.
Well, there's immediate credibility and trust there,
right,
by the time they get to you.
Totally.
Right? Because they've already, think about if it takes 7 to 12 or however many touches to make a sale, right? If you can make the majority of those before you ever have to spend a minute with that person, how great is that?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
for sure. That's phenomenal, right? And so you're creating that content, and like we said earlier, if you can explain their problem better than they can articulate it, then you win, right?
Every time. And so during the course of a podcast, during the course of a video, you're explaining their problem better than they can express it, right? So they're going, oh my goodness, he knows. He knows what I'm feeling right now. How does he know what I'm feeling right now? Right.
And so, then they're saying, I need to call Jimmy. I need to work with Why Not, because they get it. They understand how to drive traffic for me.
Yeah, that absolutely. And they understand me. They understand my business.
For sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the world of so many big brands, there's something to be said about some of the smaller companies that, we have a team big enough to do pretty much whatever you need, but all my clients still have my phone number, still text me anytime they need anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're not hitting one to talk to customer service or anything like that.
Right.
And I think there's something to be said about that in today's world of automation and you and I have been a part of the automation game, but it's
we have, but it goes back to, Jimmy, people want human connection.
That's right.
They do.
That's right. Automation should be used to free up some time so that you can have more human connections.
That's exactly right.
So that you can be face to face with more people,
right,
as opposed to sitting there typing emails back and forth and things like that.
Well, and it goes back to people want to hear and know that you understand their problem. So they want to do it in what they believe to be a non-intrusive atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they're like, okay, he gets it. And then, then they'll talk to you.
Yeah. So one thing early on in my career there was I remember thinking, how am I going to, every time I get a different business model, okay, it's an insurance guy. And I kept turning to Corey Ben Dixon, who sat behind me, and I said, so how does this, what's the kind of value for insurance? What's the value for a lawyer? What's the value for a guy, a pet groomer,
Right.
And finally he goes, stop. It's the same thing. Every time.
Okay, now that sounds okay. You're now entering on very sacred territory, because every business owner, and I don't mean to be condescending by any stretch, but every business owner feels as though their challenges are sometimes totally.
I would never say that to a client.
But listen. But this is what's interesting is when I was speaking across the country to different entrepreneur groups, I'd speak to dentists, and then I'd go speak to attorneys, and I'd go speak to these different groups, and I'd give the exact same presentation.
Same presentation.
And they'd come up to me and they'd say, "Are you a dentist?" And I'd be like, "No." And they're like, "How do you know my problems?" I'm like, "Well, I've just worked with a lot of dentists, right?" Then I'd go speak at attorneys, and they'd be like, "Are you an attorney?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Then how do you know?
How do you get it?
How do you get it?" And we go to real estate, same thing,
Yeah.
And so all the problems are very similar. And people say, "Chad, what are some of the biggest problems?" Well, we've talked about this. One, people are very fearful of putting themselves out there. They're nervous about it.
Yeah.
Like I work with attorneys, and attorneys are like, no, I'm an attorney. People are supposed to come to me, right? And so they don't want to, and they get it. A lot of the great attorneys get it that they need to spend money on marketing. But the point is, not putting myself out there. Why aren't you putting yourself out there more? And they're like, well, because I'm not good on video.
And number of times I hear that.
Oh my, yeah, they say it all the time. I mean, we started this Zoom world, or really immersed ourselves in this Zoom world in 2020, and I've never wanted Botox more than in the last 3 years, right? Because I'm looking at myself all the time in the camera going, oh, I got to do Botox. This is crazy. And so because we look at ourselves and we're critical of ourselves, and, we're harsh on ourselves. And so we need just to put ourselves out there without having that reservation of, oh my goodness, how am I going to look?
Yeah.
So Jimmy, if I look younger next time we meet, it means I finally did the Botox. So
there you go. Yeah, that never truer words have been said than right there. That you just need to not worry about it. The other thing is, you look at some of the most successful spokespeople for different brands and are they all supermodels? No, right? There's people who are, they're weird looking, or look at some of the most successful professional speakers or influencers or whatever, fill in the blank.
Right.
Are they all perfectly shaped, perfectly manicured? No, they're normal people, different shapes and sizes, right?
Right.
And people just need to get it out of their own head that, hey, no one cares. If they're watching your video based on your looks one way or another, watching or not, one way or another, do you want that person as a client?
Well, and you go back to, Jimmy, you go back to the fact that if you know their problem, remember, everyone's favorite subjects themselves. So
Right.
if you know their problem, then they want to work with you, regardless of what you look like, regardless of how well you can.
That's right.
If you stutter, whatever it might be. If you can explain their problem, they're like, you're the person for me.
Well, and if you can, I some of the most successful videos that I've ever had, that did well, it was always that you state a problem and then present some value with a basic solution. With at a high level still, but present some value. And those videos do well 100% of the time.
They do.
And it's because you're just all you're doing is they're identifying with the problem, and then you're giving some value, and they're gonna follow you. They're gonna request a consultation. They're gonna do whatever, right?
That's exactly right.
But that always works well. And that was something that, I remember when I first started doing webinars, talking to you, and you kind of going through, and I've made videos about you bring them up, and from an emotional standpoint, right?
Right.
You bring them up, and then you bring it down, doing stuff like that. And you walking through, because I looked at the presentation that you shared with me, and I had looked at it several times, but it wasn't until you helped me understand, all right, here's where we're presenting a problem, right? And then we show them how we're going to solve that.
Right.
And then we introduce another problem, and then we show them how we're going to solve that.
Right.
And by the end, we've checked boxes in multiple areas of their business, and that's why people like this presentation so much and why it does so well.
Right. And when I'll get up and I'll have some attorneys say, Chad, I need you to help me. I'm going to go speak at a conference. And also, okay, that's great. And they said, I really want to be an entertaining speaker. And I'll turn to them and I'll say, no, you don't. And they'll say, wait, what? And I said, you don't want to be an entertaining speaker. And they'll say, no, I really do. And I said, no, you want to be an engaging speaker. And so people misunderstand those two words, engaging and entertaining. Because when I get up in front of a group of attorneys, I'll say, okay, show me what it looks like to be entertained. And without fail, they all lean back, they stretch back, and I said, okay, now show me what it looks like to be engaged. And they all lean forward. Okay, so don't worry about entertaining. Worry about engaging.
That's actually a great point.
And the best podcasters in the world, the best speakers in the world are those who have people talking about the problem they solve and the content they shared, not them. Right? And so we want, and it's again, back to we're worried about ourselves, right? But we want people to leave our presentation or our podcast going, oh, Jimmy's amazing. I love Jimmy. He's incredible. I love that, we want that. That's what we want by nature. But the reality is we should say, dude, I love that Jimmy said I need to put myself out there. That's what I love, right? That's what real success looks like. When they say, man, I was listening to Jimmy Talbert's podcast and you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to put myself out there.
Yeah.
And so it's all about them. Those are the best podcasters. those who go like, oh, I love Jimmy Talbert's podcast. It was awesome. What are you going to do because of it? Yeah, I don't know. It was good. It was good.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. That's not the great podcasting experience. The great podcasting experience is someone that creates a podcast where people are going, okay, I'm going to do that. And then they want to re-enroll in the next podcast because they're going, okay, what am I going to do next time because of what Jimmy taught?
See, now I'm just boring enough that I'll never be accused of being too entertaining.
Stop. No, you're great.
So, well, we're at the 45-minute mark now, so it went fast.
That did go fast.
So if there's any attorneys, how can they connect with you?
Well, any attorney can email me at chad@scalable.com.
Chad@scalable.com.
Okay, now this is the key here. It's spelled SCALAWBLE. Scalable.com.
Just to make it tough.
Just to make it tough, scalable, because the law's right in the middle of it. SCA law, BLE. Chad.
Okay. I see.
You got it now?
Yeah, I got it now.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Come on, Jimmy, that's clever.
On the videos, we'll put it on the on the thing.
Scalable.com. It's great. It's great. So
right.
Anyway, but love being with you, Jimmy. I love the insights you share, and I love what you're about. And
Appreciate
what
it.
Your mission is to help businesses.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
So, all right, take care, man.
All right, see ya.